And former President Donald Trump just wrapped up a speech at a campaign rally in Michigan about 12 minutes ago for Republican gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon and other GOP hopefuls. And Trump took aim at his political and legal opponents, some of his barbs focusing on New York Attorney General Letitia James and her lawsuit against Trump and his company.
There's no victim. She was trying to protect banks, but the banks got paid. They never even defaulted. The fact is, I made a lot of money. We have a lot of cash. We have a great company. I pay off the banks. I think she thought the banks were taken advantage of. No, the banks had the best lawyers in the country. Believe me, I know that. They're very smart. We don't need her protecting banks. We need her protecting the people of New York from being murdered.
And towards the end of the speech, he did tout Michigan's candidates. He also again teased another potential run at the White House in 2024. Listen to this.
This is the year we're going to take back the House. We're going to take back the Senate. We're going to take back America. And in 2024, most importantly, we are going to take back our beautiful, beautiful, magnificent White House.
All right, so one more time, let's bring in Niall Stanage from The Hill. Niall, it's great to see you. And he just finished speaking a few minutes ago. What is your biggest takeaway from Trump's appearance in Michigan tonight?
Two biggest takeaways. One is that a large part of this speech was what we frankly always hear from the former president, a kind of list of grievances and injustices that he believes have been done to him. But to be fair, he did, in the latter part of the speech, make a case for Tudor Dixon that had some specificity to Michigan, talking about the economy and other issues, and stressing social issues, crime, immigration, and an interesting one, Natasha, stressing education and this issue of parents' rights. That is something that has historically, for a start, been quite important to Conservatives in Michigan in particular. The school choice movement on the right is very strong there. And it's also an issue that has been used most notably by Glenn Youngkin in Virginia with some success in other gubernatorial races. So that was interesting how Mr. Trump pivoted from his usual greatest hits to those kind of topics.
Yeah, and we know much of tonight's speech, as you said, focused on his usual playbook. He touched on 2020 again, China and the southern border again. Did he say anything new that you think could actually help Dixon in this race? We know she's trailing by double digits. Do you think by hitting on education and these other things, as you mentioned, it could make a tangible difference for her?
I think that's the intention, or that's the attempt in raising those issues. Now, a lot depends on what people consider the most memorable, and I don't mean what the media consider most memorable, but what people who were watching that speech were motivated by or were struck by. I'm not sure that Mr. Trump's presence in and of itself creates some huge advantage for Tudor Dixon that can enable her to close the kind of polling deficit she faces. There's also the point with any Trump rally or Trump appearance that he inspires both devotion from his supporters and detestation from his critics. So when he comes in, do you mobilize the Republican or populist base at the expense of also mobilizing opponents of Mr. Trump or even alienating voters in the middle ground? That's always the difficult dance where he is concerned for Republican candidates. I
mean, you bring up such an interesting point, Niall, and was it in Ohio just recently where they did not even invite him, but he showed up anyways? I mean, is his endorsement what it used to be?
Well, it's not what it used to be in one very specific respect, which is that a few months ago, his endorsements were being made in primaries, where they are clearly useful in order to get his preferred nominees to the Republican nomination. Yes, he failed on some occasions, but overall, in a Republican primary, there's no question that Trump's endorsement is sought after. In a general election, it's a very different story. He is an enormously divisive figure. He doesn't have particularly good approval ratings at all with the general population, and there's always the capacity for him to say something incendiary which turns off moderate voters, suburban voters, classic swing voters. So that's where the weakness is when he comes to town to try to push
Niall,
forward
I absolutely hear you. And in the 20 seconds or so that we have left, I mean, how about helping or hurting his own potential run in 2024? Do you think voters care about the litany of grievances that he is bringing forward at this point? Or are there members of the GOP who wish that he would be more forward-focused and stop bringing all of these things up every single time he speaks?
There definitely are people who would prefer him to be more forward-focused, not go in for these grievances. American elections broadly tend to be won by people who focus on the future, and that is the danger for Mr. Trump, that he is perceived as a candidate who wants to constantly relitigate the past.
All right, Niall Stanich, always appreciate you. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and we look forward to talking to you again. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.